I think it is pretty safe to say that all rabbis and perhaps all clergy in the UK have done at least one sermon in their life about football. And the typical example of a football sermon is to begin it with a question. Let's say, for a rabbi, to begin it with a question. Let's say the national team of England plays the national team of Israel. Who would you support? And this is about loyalty and what does it mean to be loyal to one part and not another. This year, however, football is not only about loyalty. This year, it's about ethics and morality of the country hosting the World Cup tournament. What is the role of sport in social activism and social justice? Should our players express their concern about basic human rights violations in Qatar, or should they stay away from it and leave it to experts? At the end of the day, I don't think that all footballers really know how to change the country's policy. On the one hand, the footballers are in the center of attention now, and they might use this power for good. On the other hand, it is hard not to connect footballers with the nurses' strike in the UK right now, and it is hard not to think about the social injustice in our society. The average Premier League footballer earns almost £50,000 a week. A nurse's average salary starts at £23,000 a year. Pointing at one injustice might backfire and result in pointing at many injustices that are caused by you. So in my research on this week's Torah portion, I came across the paper by Jerry Snyman and his study about moral injury. In it, Snyman connects this week's Torah portion with the concept of injustice and what happens to people when basic morality is violated and power is abused. So one of the plots of Parashat Toldot, of this week's Torah portion, is quite well known. So Rebecca gives birth to the twins, Esau and Jacob, and Esau is a hunter, the man of the fields, and Jacob is spending time at home with his mother. And in one of the episodes, Esau sells Jacob his birthright in exchange for some stew. Isaac, the father of the twins, plans to bless Esau, his firstborn, because that was the law. Whoever is born first, even if it's twins and even if it's just by so ever slightly first, but still firstborn. But Rebekah loves Jacob's more, and Rebekah and Jacob develop a plan to deceive Isaac so that Jacob receives the blessing instead of his brother. The plan is a success. When Esau learns about it, he threatens to kill his brother, Jacob, who then runs away to Haran. It will be 20 years before the brothers meet again and reconcile. So one of the ways of looking at this story is through the injustice that happens to Esau. By the way, classic rabbinic interpretation is to do whatever they can to blame Esau, to find that Esau is the bad guy. But this scholar takes a very different approach. Jacob and Rebekah betrayed him and tricked Isaac into blessing the wrong child. Moral injury is a betrayal of what is right by someone who holds legitimate authority. For example, a military or political leader in a situation involving serious risks. In other words, if people remain inactive and indifferent when they are supposed to act, not only victims suffer, but all witnesses are affected too. When we, readers of the story, observe this injustice, not only we feel for Esau, but also the sense of what is right becomes corrupt for us. One of the consequences of moral injury is that the person's self-value becomes affected. Every moral injury lowers the bar of morality for people who watch it happen, even if it's not their decision. Zohar, the central work for the literature of the Kabbalah, the Jewish mysticism, links the exile of the Jewish people and the injustice afflicted upon Esau by his brother Jacob. The statement of the Zohar relates to the biblical account of Esau's reaction to learning that he has been robbed by his father's blessing, by Jacob's deceitful act. This is what he says in the Torah, and this is the Torah story. When Esau heard his father's words, he burst into wild and bitter tears and said to his father, "Bless me too, father." But he answered, "Your brother came and took away your blessing." Esau said, "Well, first he took away my birthright, and now he's taking away my blessing. Bless me too, father." And Esau cried. So this is how Zohar understood the long-lasting effect of Esau's tears. In Ramah, that was the place, there was a voice heard, lamentation and weeping, and great mourning. Rachel weeping for her children and would not be comforted. This is the quote from Jeremiah. So Rabbi Isaac said, the redemption of Israel depends only on tears. When the effect of the tears of Esau, which he shed before his father on account of the birthright, shall have exhausted, redemption will begin to Israel, said Rabbi Yossi. Esau's cry brought Israel into captivity, and when their force is exhausted, Israel, through their tears, shall be delivered from the captivity. In other words, the tears of victims will not pass without consequences. This might not be directly applied to the perpetrator, but sometimes to the entire nation. If people allow immoral behavior to happen among them, it's everybody's responsibility, not only the one who did it. In one of the commentaries, Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch wrote, "When the strong respects the strong, this is a digression. But when the strong falls on the neck of the weak and casts his sword away, then we know that humanity and justice have prevailed." Rabbi Hirsch spoke about the future events in the Torah, 20 years later, deceitful act of Jacob and Esau. Of Jacob, really, towards Esau. When Esau and Jacob will meet again, 20 years later, Esau will become stronger than Jacob, have larger army, but still decide not to use his sword and to resolve this conflict in peace. He will fall on the neck of the weak of Jacob and will cast his sword away. Rabbi Abraham Isaac Cook, Rabbi Cook, the famous rabbi, puts this story in the context of conflict resolution. He refers to the verse in Proverbs, "Just as the water reflects one's face, so does one's heart reflect other human hearts." Rabbi Cook understands the verse to suggest that just as the water serves as a mirror that reflects one's facial expression, so does the heart respond and react to the way one is being treated. When one deals harshly with another, so does the other respond in kind and even with greater animosity. Therefore, bad and unjust treatment turns into hatred, and hatred turns into everlasting and irreconcilable conflicts. It's important not to turn a blind eye at injustice. It's important to point at the unfairness of the world. However, one cannot stop the war with more war. One cannot stop injustice with more injustice. One needs a positive example for others to follow, not only blame. It's not enough to point fingers at what goes wrong with others. You need to become the model of behavior yourself, the country and society that others would like to become. It's not enough and not possible to force others to be moral. You need to begin with being moral yourself. The best protest and campaign against injustice is building a just, visionary, and fair society around you. The best way to change others is not through shame, but inspiration. The best way to repair the world is to start with your own community, your country, and make sure that nurses are respected and paid with dignity. People are not dying from breathing mold, and people don't have to wait for years for an important appointment. Just as water reflects one face, so does one's heart reflect other human hearts. Shabbat Shalom.